Hello and welcome back to the Red Path. Today we're taking another look at the fight phase and why restraint is sometimes a surer path to victory than mindless slaughter. Alright, don't yell just yet, hear me out. Sure, I get it that World Eaters and Berserkers in particular want to bullishly charge into the enemy and claim skulls ignorant of the cost, but I'm here to sell you a different version, and it applies for fluffy games and competitive games. Sure, of all the 40k factions outside of perhaps Orcs, World Eaters are probably the most reckless and thoughtless when it comes to combat. Incredibly effective when they get there, sure, but a little more focus might increase the amount of skulls claimed for Khorne. There are multiple examples in the fluff of berserkers trying to control and sedate themselves, from those warriors fighting the White Scars at the beginning of the Red Path book series, to Khan adopting his kill counter for the sole purpose of focus, to Orion Zorzi apparently overcoming the nails with meditation and drugs. Hell yeah. Sure, we don't need to go down the route of allowing the nails to be a readily controllable thing, altering it from a legitimate monkey's paw to a superpower, but it's important to note that there is a fluffy reason to restrain the nails, and here's why it matters. Whether a narrative campaign or the final game at the LVO, 40k is a game, and that implies two things. One, it's a pastime used for fun and enjoyment, and two, there is a win-loss paradigm, and the goal is to win. The trick, as ever, is combining the two, and that's why I provided a narrative justification for a little restraint, because things are about to get tactical. Picture the scene. You've got two rhinos full of berserkers in the centre field, and there's two squads of gene stealers sitting on objectives that you want to claim. The typical play is to disembark the berserkers, charge the stealers, and slay them all in glorious combat. The problem with this is that when you do this, your opponent will be very inclined to drop 2 CP as soon as possible and interrupt combat, and likely slay one of your Zerker squads in retaliation, leaving you at a pawn for pawn exchange. This isn't terrible, but it's nowhere near optimal either. Letting the blood in your ears guide your combat decisions can be overly costly and ultimately lead to defeat. Berserkers, whilst insanely effective in combat, are still only Marines, currently 1 wound, T4 and a 3-up save, with very little opportunity for making them tougher. So let's backtrack this assault, and instead of aiming for maximum carnage, restrain the nails and ask ourselves 3 questions. 1. Does your opponent have 2 CP or any other means of interrupting combat, such as a fight first ability or opponent's fight last ability, something like that? Question 2. Are the desired charge targets competent enough, or can they be made competent enough in combat to neutralize a squad of berserkers? And question 3. How many charges do you actually need to make now to play the mission successfully? Answering question 1 is fairly simple. Most charges for World Eaters will occur in turns 2 and 3, and given the regenerating CP of 9th edition, it's likely your opponent will have 2 CP at this point, and can interrupt. There's also plenty of abilities that destabilise the order of operations, so you need to be aware of those. Check out this video I made a few weeks ago for more information on that. Question 2 is more dependent on your player experience, rules knowledge and mental math skills. The ability to answer this innately will come with time, but there's no harm in preparing by reading other armies' codexes, watching bat reps, asking your opponent questions before the battle, and so on. The third answer is probably the most crucial. This is really where your skill as a commander comes to play. What do you gain by your desired charges? Are you securing objectives, contesting them, gaining secondary points, denying an opponent's secondary? Is the result of each charge going to offer a strategic edge in winning the game? If so, determine which charges are the most profitable, and can others be held off for a turn or two. Charging 2 units of berserkers into 2 combat effective enemy units is rash, and not always ideal. Sure, if the sacrifice is worth it, by all means do it, but only then. 1 squad of berserkers should be able to destroy 1 blob of stealers, and potentially weaken a second with your own CP investment, assuming charges were successful. Check out this video if you want advice on how to focus your berserkers for particular kill targets. In the scenario mentioned previously, 2 squads of berserkers and 2 blobs of gene stealers, by disembarking just 1 squad of berserkers and then charging 1 unit of stealers, you are knowingly sacrificing the berserkers, but denying your opponent 2 likely kills. Your squad will fight first and will normally eliminate at least 1 threat, but by keeping the other squad safe-ish in their transport, Your opponent has to deal with the foot-slocking berserkers first, buying time for your reserves. Anywhere from 400 to 800 points spent on berserkers in a typical World Eaters list, this includes transports and supporting characters, it is absolutely necessary to get the most value from them. By withholding portions of their strength and grinding down your opponent's natural counters, you are likely to be able to continue trading knights for rooks, and hopefully have at least one squad at full strength with support ready for the final assault on their back lines. In short, when you are faced with a fair fight, consider what the most profitable path would be. Remind yourself of your opponent's ability to interrupt combat and whether the likely losses you will incur are worth it. Whilst a turn 2 or 3 mid-table slaughter is incredibly satisfying, it is not a guaranteed step on the path to victory. Okay folks, I hope this short tactica makes sense. I wrote about it previously in the World Eaters Legion Facebook group, but here being able to visualise it should hopefully make it a little easier to understand. Okay, so that's the end of this one. As ever, if you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave a thumbs down. I hope you're a subscriber, and if not, I'd hope you'd consider subscribing. As ever folks, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main bang.